We've turned the page over to May and all roads lead to the racing capital of the world. Once again, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway will take center stage, and while the eyes of the world will be watching in real life, today, drivers in the virtual world in the iRacing IndyCar Open Series get ready to do battle. It's going to be a short race, just 29 laps of racing. I can't wait for it. I'm so glad you can join myself, Arjuna Kankipati, for all of the action. What a season it has been so far. Let's talk about where the drivers have been, and really what a journey it has been, starting at Sebring on the bumpy Sebring International Raceway. After that, the first of the oval rounds, we made our way over to the Auto Club Speedway, and then mix and mashing our way through the different disciplines. We've landed here for 4 races in the month of May to close off this season. One important thing to note, it's a 12-round championship. 7 of those races are road courses. 5 of them are ovals. This is iRacing, racing available to anybody on the iRacing service, and so the expectation is not everyone's going to be there every single week. You're allowed 4 drop rounds to be excluded from the championship, but because, of course, as mentioned, 7 road courses, you still need to be adaptable, and so a couple of weeks of oval racing ahead of us, potentially still very much focused on that, and it'll be a road course, a street course to finish things off. At the front of the championship, though, well, it's been about dominance of Phil Krause and Adam Blocker. Unfortunately, Adam Blocker not going to be racing tonight. He is actually heading over to the IndyCar Driver in the Loop simulator to help Agustin Canapino get ready for the month of May. So Phil Krause going to get an opportunity to fight amongst what is a strong field of racers here today at the front and just looking for points. Points as well looking for Jacob Oster and for Kevin Burrell, who's now no longer with Satellite Racing, embarking on his own. Hamilton Akabuwizi joins his Team I5G teammate of Jacob Oster, though, inside of the top 5. Brandon Roseberg, John Baderfer, the Hydrace Geodesic Racing pair are 6th and 8th respectively, with a handful of drivers, of course, still involved in plenty of championship fights. And well, let's take a look at the track for the very first time. It looks, well, rather overcast. The first thing that springs to mind when you see, well, the cloud cover, the gray skies, and that is the conditions the drivers are dealing with right now. Qualifying underway. They get 8 minutes, the track to themselves, and 2 laps to be able to put it all together. And well, put it all together, Phil Krause has been able to do best of them all. Christian Hilgard has just gone up into what is 2nd on the board, but still, a handful of drivers yet to set lap times. Going to be an interesting field, as mentioned. The iRacing strength of field, which is the measure effectively of the competition in the field, how much the drivers have succeeded in the course of their iRacing career, was 5,000, which was very, very high. Jaden Munoz, the highest of the I-rated drivers, with over 9,000 I-rating. I'm not jealous of that at all. Here comes Brad Newman, though, in that number 7. He's one of the machines that's yet to put himself onto the board, and that lap time not going to count because it's actually his 3rd time lap time, so he invalidated his first 2 attempts. That's going to see no improvement for him. Here comes Rob Malechka in the confusingly liveried car, but representing Powerslide Motorsports. He's not going to improve on that fastest lap time, and he's still out there getting what will be a couple more laps under his belt. There are some drivers still circulating that may be looking to try and improve in terms of time. Here comes Matt Taylor. Let's ride with him in through the opening corner. Watch how much curb was being used there, but that in some ways spat him a little bit too far out wide and compromised him on throttle. The rear end almost wanted to step out there on the downshift as he worked his way through, and for a second Matt Taylor looked like he got confused as to which layout of the track that we were using. It's a very fast chicane that builds you onto this back straightaway and then hard onto the brakes. This qualifying session, though, going to be coming to a close because the clock will strike 0, and Matt Taylor, one of 4 drivers that does not get to set a qualifying time. As a look at that main straightaway, we'll run our way the wrong way down into turn number 1. Of course, when we go racing for 500 miles at the start of June for the iRacing Indy 500, we'll be flying all the way down to that, whatever you call it, timing tower on the left and heading off into the opening corner. Ready to go racing, though, here on RaceSpotTV from Speedway, Indiana. Let's take you down trackside where Phil Krause once again building a house at the front of the field. A big margin for him a quarter of a second over Christian Hillgaard in the satellite racing car, and then Jacob Oster for Team i5G will line up alongside Williams Esports' own Jaden Munoz in that #1 machine. Kevin Burrell is alongside of Robert Milechka. First time we've seen Burrell as a privateer in quite a while. He's about half a second off of the pace, with 7th going the way of Brandon Roseborough in the Hydra Race Geodesic racing machine. Mitch Welker is 8th, with Connor Harrington and John Bader for 9th and 10th. Hayata Matsuda is 11th, and Bo Rigor is alongside in 12th position. Nick Sudik hoping not to be unlucky 13th. Sam Karasala is alongside him, with Blaze Andrick and Luke Rosella 15th and 16th. Row 9 sees Seb Alexander and Alan Berteau riding alongside. Richard Holt, the final driver, with a time on the board, and then look at those, well, with some moves to make from the back. No other way to describe it, really. Brad Newman starts in front of Brandon Treno, and then Alexander Russell in a very, very new satellite racing car is back in 22nd. Matt Taylor, 23rd for him, and some big shocks as you look your way up and down through the field. So glad you can join us here on RaceSpotTV. Don't forget, timing and scoring available at timing.racespot.tv if you wish to follow along with your favorite team and driver. There's a look at the drivers getting their final instructions to get gridded up and get ready to go racing. And it'll be Kraus and Hillgaard at the front, side by side. And then Oster in the green and gold, accompanied by Jaden Munoz in that Williams Esports blue machine. It's only a 29-lap race here today. And what that means is, with the fuel window sitting right at around 25 laps, it makes for a very, very wide strategy gambit. You have 2 compounds of tires to be used as well. If you're new to the world of IndyCar, we have the primary harder compound of tire. Grips up a little bit less, but it's a little bit more durable over the course of the race. And we have the red-walled alternates compound tire that is a little bit softer in its nature, but will wear a little bit more. Given that we have some coolish conditions here, going to be interesting to see how many laps those tires can go. I mean, overcast in the sky, doesn't get more gray and dull than that. Decently windy as well, 16, 17 km/h gusts of wind. It's ticking past around 4 p.m. virtual standard time as well, so late in the afternoon/evening, if you wanted to look at it like that. Delighted to be able to say as well that a handful of the drivers have decided to give us a look on board. So we take a look at Alexander Russell. Has to fight his way all the way from the back of the field, and you can kind of hear it right now as we turn down the music, turn up the engines. Was clutching in there, trying to save some fuel. Every little bit that you can to take advantage. He is starting on the primary compound tire. Expect him to go as long as possible, and then potentially to try and switch it on over to the alternates late in the day. Meanwhile, Jacob Oster up front. He's starting on the primaries as well, but he's going to be surrounded by plenty of drivers that will be on that softer compound of tire. It'll be fascinating for him to see how he's going to approach this start. How aggressive, how tentative does he want to be? He's got a smile on his face. The rest of Team i5G probably talking to him in the chat. Can only imagine the banter that's being had. Strength of field, 5,000. So pretty strong. Should be in for some good racing. And some cool track conditions. What's that going to mean as we get ready to go racing? Pace car will peel off and away as we head out of this final sector. Let's not forget, iRacing rescanned the Indianapolis Motor Speedway just at the end of 2022. Finally, we get to put the new scan on center stage. Today, it's just the build-up. The ramp-up will come. First, the real world will take center stage for its Indianapolis 500 in a couple of weeks' time. And then the grind will begin. A week's worth of qualifying. And then the ever-important race. Another edition of the iRacing Indianapolis 500 to come June 1st, June 2nd. That's a long way away. But for now, it's road course racing here in Speedway, Indiana. Phil Kraus trying to build another house, and away we go racing. Phil Kraus already using one of his push-to-passes. My word, no hanging around as we sail ourselves off on the run down to turn number 1. Watch for Jaden Munoz on the inside. Williams Esports Machine going to try and make a move. HydroRace Geodesic Racing clips someone behind, and one driver just goes straight at turn number 1, trying to say, no way, get me out of all of this. Crazy, crazy stuff. Kevin Burrell's found his way up into third position, but as we flick our way through the chicane, up and over the curbing, onto the back straightaway, Kraus from Munoz from Burrell, and already some separation starting to build. Some drivers looking quite aggressively to the inside. That was Brandon Roseborough, and now Oster goes around. The Wormman's in the grass, and now patiently waits for the rest of the field to streak their way on through. I'm going to end up with absolutely no voice by the end of this. Brandon Traino's trying to make some moves. It was Christian Hildegard that made that small mistake down at turn number 1. Throws it up the inside of Connor Harrington. That's a driver with alternate tires passing a driver on primary tires. Grip versus durability, center stage there. Front of the field and leading at the line. It's Phil Kraus, but hunted down by Jaden Munoz. This might be a lot closer at the front than we expected. We'll have to keep an eye on it. That's a look from further behind. Not quite sure if Robert Malechka really thought he was going to get the chance to make his way on forward. Backs out of it. And now run their way in through this opening sector once more. On board with the satellite racing machine of Christian Hildegard. Yet to use one of the push-to-passes, and look how much runoff you can use on that left-hand side. Brandon Roseborough going to be forced to try to look around the outside of Robert Malechka. Holds on for the time being. Nice and tidy, at least through this part of the field. A little bit further back. A little bit of slip up there for Seb Alexander. Alexander Russell makes his way on forward, and moves being thrown through the field. Malechka now gets slightly set up high. Roseborough throws it up the inside. Now here comes Christian Hildegard, not waiting around, and 2 for 1. Malechka down to 7th spot. So 2 laps complete. This race only going to take about 35 minutes to run. With 29 laps of racing, 10 usages of the push-to-pass, you can be quite liberal with it. Robert Malechka didn't need it though. Backs out into turn number 1. But evident to see, draft and its play very much helping some of these drivers out. Remember as well that we might have some differences in terms of setup. There is Brandon Traino. His charge through the field has seen him climb up to 12th. Alexander Russell trying to follow him forward as well. Quite calm, at least for the time being, as we ride on board with Alexander Russell. Stands up in his sim rig as he gets onto the brakes. Next close up to the back of Nick Sudik, but there's a little bit of work to do. I can also just let you know the other driver that's feeding us their webcam, Jacob Oster, not going to be too happy about the fact that he's dropped backwards after qualifying very well. Let's see what he can do, try and mitigate this damage long term in the race. Phil Kraus is apparently trying to break away at the front of the field. He's using one of his push-to-passes, as a handful of other drivers are through the field, but you can see from some of these camera angles, no one really close enough to make any moves just yet. Handful of cars in pit lane. I see Richard Holt ready to leave. Is that maybe our cue to try and go back in time and sequence through what happened at the start of the race? So first, Hayato Matsuda just gets absolutely clipped. You can see Christian Hildegard's gone deep as well. How that did not cause more, I mean, I'll give credit where credit was due. Drivers very much minimized and mitigated how bad that could have been. Satellite racing car, though, just overcommits. You can see the wiggle there. Does a good job to avoid bringing it into the wall, and then as Bo Rigor behind the driver that I think made a bit of contact, it all got kicked off. Right on board with the number 8 HydroRace Geodesic Racing Machine. And there you can see, I wouldn't be shocked if at that point there was already damage on the suspension. Hits one of his teammates for good measure as well. Somewhat unfortunate. John Badefer I think, the other party to that one. What happened then to Oster? Deep under the brakes, and oh, brake bias maybe the wrong place. A little bit deep of his own volition. Was feeling the pressure, I should say, that Robert Malechka was putting from behind. Here's a look at the replay, riding on board with him. Oh, you can just see actually closed up way too quick to the back of Kevin Burrell. And outside of that, pleased to inform you, no crashes inside of the opening laps. Slow to rejoin for Oster, but doing what he needed to do. Kraus breaking away, though, from Jaden Munoz. Williams Esports driver being pressured by the new privateer. Kevin Burrell enters the month of May no longer with a team. What does that mean for him, though? We're about to find out. Of course, moved his way over to Japan. And so for him, what time would it be? About 9 o'clock in the morning, so it's not terrible. The iRacing Indy 500, though, going to be at a little bit of a more uncomfortable time, to say the very least. Back on board, let's see where Brandon Traino's going. Past Luke Rosella and forward to 11th. His charge continues in the red Apex Racing Team entry. And of course, the only multi-time winner of the iRacing Indy 500 broadcast split, charging his way back up through the field. No pressure from behind for him. Instead, it's Alexander Russell that looks to try and slot past Nick Sudik. Able to get it stopped and wound down in time. And then a little bit wide out through turn 2, but arcs it back in through nicely. Seb Alexander will be next in the line. Remember, we've got different tire compounds at play here. Alexander on the alternates, Russell and Sudik both on the primaries in front. See that on the left side of the screen. 23 took to the start. John Bader for Hayata Matsuda and Bo Rigo all sitting in pit lane, unfortunately. 20 machines still out there, only Richard Holt a lap down, and in his case, 2 laps down to be specific. Been some big movers and shakers, though, through all of this. Of course, not just the likes of Brandon Traino and Alexander Russell after their poor qualifying efforts, but even the likes of Mitch Welker, 4 positions gained and only 5 seconds off of the race lead. We saw him run very strongly in the Open Wheels Grand Prix at the end of 2022. And so in his car that's being chased down by Brandon Roseborough, just keep an eye on him. Keep an eye as well on the fact that these are 2 very, very similar liveries, but I'll just reiterate, 2 different teams. Bounce over the curb, fly your way down that back straightaway. And Connor Harrington racing with Rob Malechka for 7th and 8th positions. Of course, no longer in April. We're no longer talking about the private label Mega Team Power Team slide hype. But Robert Malechka seems to have not got the memo and still running a paint scheme that is for a team he does not compete on. Harrington on the inside, though. That car looking a little bit more settled on the long run. And one more move made. 2 spots up now for Harrington, who slides his way past Malechka. Hey, I bet you Tommy Milner's not complaining. Free publicity for his private label crew. And now push to pass is being used up and down through the field. There goes Brandon Roseborough up the inside of Mitch Welker. Now, can he get it stopped in time? Welker can run around the outside, but elects not to fight back. Great sound from the Solara IRA teams, of course. The All-American iRacers with Project 2 car skips over the curbs. And yes, dropped down 1 spot. But realistically, are we halfway through the fuel window here on these alternate tires? Have already seen what is a drastic fall off. Mitch Welker, let's take his lap times as a case in point as we follow him in particular. Best lap of 1:11.2, fastest lap of 1:12.5. Or maybe I flipped that around, who knows? You know that scene, I am the captain, I am the commentator right now. So what I say goes, even when it's not always correct. But please do correct me. If you're watching on RaceSpotTV, let me know who you're cheering on for as well. Kevin Burrell going to close up to Phil Kraus. Now Phil Krause has run deep. Where has he gone off to? Does he have a slowdown as a result of that? This is going to close it up for the race lead, surely. Snail's pace for the private label Team Hype Black and Pink machine. And here comes the field. Jaden Munoz will inherit the race lead. And Phil Krause demoted. And Kevin Burrell slices to the inside. Big move. Able to stop it, winds it down in time, and makes the move happen. Phil Krause has served the slowdown, but one mistake, a costly mistake as well. Here's a look at what happened. Off and into the opening corner. Oh, Phil, there's a braking zone there, sir. One more look at it, and then we'll be able to rejoin the drivers off into the opening corner. Oh, he's way past it. There's no way he's stopping that in time. That is just a mistake, and a rare one. Collector's item. Phil Krause now down in third position and looking to the inside of Burrell. It's 5 within 3 seconds for your race lead. Munoz from Burrell, and then Krause, Roseborough, and Welker. And would you have told Christian Hildegard at the start of this race he would have gone deep through the opening corner, dropped down outside of the top 10, and oh wait, his satellite racing car is there at the back of the shot. Oh, I love myself some IndyCar, and I love that we're back here in Speedway, Indiana, the racing capital of the world. On board on the bottom with the satellite racing machine of Christian Hildegard. Off the banking, just straighten the car up, and then be careful on the inside with how much curb you clatter over. We've got a race on our hands. Kevin Burrell on the button. He's feeling the pressure, wants to close the gap up front. Left side of the screen, you can see the push to pass usages. Remember, you all start with 10. It's an even playing field. You get 2 real places that you might use them. The main straight, the back straightaway. One driver thinking, it's time for me to take my trip down pit lane. Brandon Traino's charge had seen him climb up to what had been almost 10th position. He's now going to switch over to the alternates. So he's very, very confident that the softer compound of tire has got enough life in it to go to the end of the race. Tidy pit stop for Traino. It's 7.8 seconds, and off and away the king of the bricks rolls. Now, does anyone decide that they have speed on the primaries? Brandon Roseborough has been flying. And remember, John Badefer, Bo Regal got tangled up through turn 1. Hydra Race Geodesic clearly have a decent setup. Not going to see all their drivers get to use it. John Badefer has thrown himself back out onto track. Mitch Welker, he's now thrown his way down onto pit lane in his All-American iRacers with Project 2 entry. Not the only one either. Behind him, Sam Carasala. Jacob Oster as well. It's that time. 20 or so minutes left in terms of racing on track. And Mitch Welker is very, maybe it was just the camera angle that we saw there, very tentative in entering into the pit box. Not quite sure about that. Was he maybe short filling at the start of this race, and did he splutter? Not quite sure. Off and away, he's going to rejoin. How far in front of Brandon Traino? That's kind of going to be my measure for how far Traino is from the lead. Traino's around 8 seconds off of Mitch Welker. Remember, he'll be on the compound of tire that hypothetically would be favored at the end. But he really put himself in a precarious and uncomfortable situation, bit of a pickle, one would say, by failing to put in a time in qualifying. More drivers to the box. It's Brandon Roseborough, maybe covering off Mitch Welker in some ways. Pace has ratcheted back up from the front of the field. They're in the low 112s. Quite impressed by the speed that they're able to hit. This is the thing, by the way, with solo commentary. You don't have someone else that's here to settle you down and to calm you down. Oh, poor Jacob Oster. He's gone and wormed it off the track once again. Saw that fly up on my timing screen. We'll go take a look at the replay. What's he managed to do? Hopefully he's not flown his way into outer space. No, he's just flown his way off the track. Now, how's he done that? Oh, wow, that looked uncomfortable. Now, this is the very same corner where he had his issue on the opening lap. What? Okay. Something's not right. And then wibble wobble back on track. Kevin Burrell down on pit lane as Jaden Munoz on the button once more. And there you go with the gearbox games. Remember that there's time to be gained on pit lane and everyone's trying to find that opportunity. Blaze Andrick trying to find his chance to rejoin the track. Now, where is he spun? That is through the opening sector, I would believe. Yeah, that's through the long, sweeping right-hander. Struggling to get the car out of the gravel as well, hoping he hasn't beached it. Up on the jacks for 4 Firestone tires. It's primary compound for Kevin Burrell, and here he goes. Brandon Roseborough is on the button. Where will he emerge? Watch just in front. Burrell very, very slow, but it's going to have the inside and be fed through the opening corner. Roseborough with the tires up to temperature, but with some ground still left to catch. FYI, Blaze did end up needing to take the tow. I suspect there was beaching here in Indianapolis. My timing screen has just told me that Connor Harrington is the next to head down onto pit lane. Jaden Munoz and Phil Kraus trying to go as long as possible. What's the crossover going to end up being in terms of lap times? Luke Rosella and Seb Alexander elect to head down to the pit lane. Let's see, though, if we can look at the lap time comparison between Mitch Welker, who was a 10th quicker on his first timed attempt, compared to your race leader. What's it going to be the next time by? That's probably the more pertinent question, as the All-American iRacers machine has some draft in front from Brandon Roseborough and from Kevin Burrell, of course. It's only marginally quicker. I would not feel like I had to respond so desperately if I am your race leaders. Maybe, though, if Brandon Traino continues just to carve his way forward, that's when you get a bit more concerned. Connor Harrington's going to emerge directly in front of the King of the Bricks. And now a fight on their hands. Both drivers on the alternate compound, and Harrington's made the mistake. Oh, heavens! Into the gravel, into the wall. And that's surely race done. Race leader into pit lane as well. Here we go, it's all kicking off. Jaden Munoz brings the Williams Esports car in. And you see no games being played with the gearbox, but you see no pit limiter being used. He'll make his way into his marks. Here's a look, by the way, first at what happened to Blaze Andrick, who was a victim of exactly what happened to Connor Harrington. Cold tires and cold alternate tires, it seems. Very, very precarious. A look at Harrington as well. Oh, he was never really in a chance of being able to save that. And then watch, it was half a corner later, but same thing happened for Luke Rosella. Oh, and big, hellacious contact for him. Off and away. Here comes Munoz. Where are those drivers that are boxed already? Burrell with the pressure from behind, but the black and gold machine of Brandon Roseborough slips and slides its way through turns 2 and 3. Still, crucially, behind the number 1 machine. Looks like Brandon Roseborough has burned through half of his push-to passes. So he's been aggressively using the button, bashing away on it. And let's see how that's going to fare out for him, trying to close that margin up. This, by the way, another look at Luke Rosella, who was already out wide. There you can see Connor Harrington still trying to recover. High sides it on the curb. And bang into the wall. Rear wing, goes a bit askew. And a hard contact there. Not through, I think, much fault of their own. Battle behind, by the way. Christian Hylgaard passes Mitch Welker. No fight put up. I think Welker realizes Hylgaard's flying and can bring him forward. Which the pass to be used by the Satellite Racing driver to try and close. Excuse me, I've just been transfixed. I've just realized where Williams have hid the Duracell battery on their IndyCar. And now that I've seen it, I will never be able to unsee it. Now, I'm going to have to try and find a camera angle that shows it off appropriately, but we'll get to that slightly later on, because here comes the man with the plan. Phil Kraus into pit lane. It will be a set of alternate tires to be swapped over to primaries for him. A tank of fuel to be refilled. And of course, he'll have the best spot in terms of pit stalls. It's going to be an awfully long wait before we see him come to a stop. Jaden Munoz will already be heading surely onto the brakes through the final sector. There comes the number one machine. And nice and tidy on the curb. He is looking very comfortable in the transition from GTP to IndyCar. We've traditionally seen Munoz fly for the prototype squad, and I think the undercut's going to work a treat for him here. I don't even think Phil Kraus is really going to even have a chance to respond, because there goes Munoz through the opening corner, and Phil Kraus will have his shortcut through the opening couple, but it's more in a fight now with Kevin Burrell, who's got his way on forward. Cold tires for Kraus to be fired up. What can Brandon Roseborough do potentially from behind? Onto the back straightaway. 3 scampering in this train. Look at the LED light up. Push to pass being activated. Brandon Roseborough to the outside. A little bit of draft being fed by Burrell. And the confidence, the speed. Oh, wonderful. Love to see it there. Brandon Roseborough forward to 7th. But eventually the price will be paid. He is 5 laps into his run as compared to Phil Kraus. You can see that on the left-hand side of the screen. There's still 4 drivers yet to pit. That includes Alan Berteau, who was making a comment in the iRacing IndyCar Discord moments before this race that he was the lowest I-rated driver in the field. If he finishes, he'd be happy. He's on for a pretty decent result, it would seem, if he can survive and stay out of trouble. From up above, though, Phil Kraus with the speed, the overspeed. Can he slow it down in time? Yes, he does. Championship leader, and for a reason. Kraus back to 7th. But some work to do, I think, now. They want to try and close that margin back up to the race leader. Great shot of the drivers slingshotting their way onto the straight. You remember when Formula One first came here to Indianapolis and we had that road course constructed? We don't need to talk about that race where they had just the 6, that actually took to the grid. But let's talk about the races where they had that awful double hairpin section in the opening sector. There was no one justifying reason I can think of for having that section. As much as this, the chicane that we have is interesting, NASCAR ripped it up back in, 2021, 2022, when they came here. It's great, it's fascinating. Phil Kraus on the button, and again, he's got 4 lap fresher tires than Kevin Burrell. It's not going to be that easy, but about as easy as you could hope for. Now net second on track. 2.3 seconds to close to your net race leader. Wondering how short the pit stop's going to end up being for Rob Malechka, Alexander Russell, Nick Sudik, and Alan Berteau. Total pit delta here ends up being around 50-something seconds, depending on how capable you are on pit entry and pit exit, but, that would drop them effectively down into the latter half of the top 10 at best. And maybe right on cue, here comes the private label mega team power team slide height machine down to pit lane. He's not going to be joined, though, by Alexander Russell. Remember, no qualifying time for Russell. He's doing exactly what he really needed to do, going as long as possible on the primary compound of tire. And we'll switch over to the alternates. late in the run. Compare his strategy call to Brandon Traino in about 10 minutes time when the checkered flag flies. Which one was maybe the optimal strategy with a bit of hindsight and the benefit of hindsight, I guess, as well. I briefly alluded as well to, the fact that last time we saw Mitch Welker here was during the Open Wheels Grand Prix. As far as I can remember, that was one of the last competitive road races that we've had with this car and track combo. And I think that's probably resulted in many ways in limited setup preparation. I'm willing to bet here a handful of these drivers rocked up with whatever they competed with during the month of November in 2022. It's tidy from Kevin Burrell. Some of these curbs are flat, some a bit more raised. Have to know and understand when you can use each of them. You might be starting to think, though, about a bit of a battle between Brandon Roseborough and Kevin Burrell as we look off the shoulder of the number 4 machine. Down through the gears. A little bit of slide there. Definitely tell that both of these drivers did pit a bit earlier than Phil Kraus. Phil Kraus not by any means gapping these drivers. Steadily pulling away and starting to make himself known in the rear mirror of your net race leader, Jaden Munoz. I've had a couple of further incidents out on track from what I understand. See if we can grab a look at a couple more replays. First up, Connor Harrington. That's what Phil Kraus did through turn 1. He's already got damage on the left front of that wing, though. You can kind of half pick it up. Yeah, maybe a bit too deep. Maybe also a little bit unbalanced in terms of the aero platform of the car. More pit stops going to be underway. But for Hayata Matsuda, there's no pitting and recovering from that. What's happened to him in that orange and blue car? DIY sim machine bounces on the inside curb, and then a bit of pogo sends it into the grass. And I think with the leaders coming through, did not want to try and rejoin into their path. Speaking of rejoins, here comes Alexander Russell on pit lane alongside of Nick Sudik, off and away and in 10th position, but it is going to be somewhat close on the pit exit. Watch on the outside. Jacob Oster's going to be there. And both drivers feeding us webcams. Oh, going to be involved in a fight. Nick Sudik's going to have to potentially watch in the rearview mirror for Connor Harrington. He's still out on track after those couple of little slip-ups. Here we go, closing stages. Fight starting to brew. This is the fight for the podium spot. A final podium spot up for grabs. All that's Phil Kraus now down to within 8/10 of your race leader. Brandon Roseborough climbs onto the push to pass and tries to make an assault down into the opening turn. 5th, now 6th gear to the inside, and now with the task of slowing it down in time. Easier said than done. Primary tires giving enough grip to make it stick. Let's check back in though up front. Jaden Munoz has now got his mirrors filled and hands full with the cream of the crop. It does not get much better than this. Push to pass being used from behind. Here comes Kevin Burrell, 3 wide with traffic. Traffic backs out. Now Brandon Roseborough went deep. Rear end steps out on him, but he's able to slow it down, park it on the apex as they slither their way through the S's. Laps ticking away, and there are push to passes being banked for these drivers. 6 laps to run. Where do you turn your eyes? Well, on RaceSpotTV with the multi-view, top and bottom. Fight for first, fight for third. Jaden Munoz has got one push to pass in hand, and I think Phil Kraus knew that. He does not use the speed advantage But even with that, closes down to within half a car length at most. This is Indy. Onto the power. Look at the tower lighting up like a Christmas tree for the rest. No one really in contention. Oh, Jaden Munoz went to defend. Phil Krause goes late. Wow. Both drivers, instinct on display. The mindset has got to be one, though, of not crashing. And I think a similar story at this point in that fight behind. Because guess who's joined the fight? Christian Hillgaard qualified on the outside of the front row, went deep through the opening corner. Wants to salvage a podium result and has his chance. Phil Krause is on the button. Has he been waiting long enough? Jaden Munoz went very, very late. Responds on the button, but almost at the yard of bricks. He's pinched to the inside. He'll slow it down in time. Oh, fantastic stuff. High-level racecraft. Krause trying to switch back underneath. Munoz gives him the room. They'll be wheel to wheel through the chicane. And Krause responds with a push to pass of his own. I'm going to lose my voice. There's no ifs or buts about it. Onto the brakes around the outside. Being squeezed as well. Phil Krause is back on top. Jaden Munoz will try though and hold him, but Krause has got the inside in the crucial right-hander. Back towards turn one they will fly. This time though, surely, move though, done and dusted. If Krause has got the confidence and 2 lap fresher tires, means that the private label Team Hype machine finds its way back on top. Doing a dance across the yard of bricks. 3 laps left to rumble. Have you ever? It's not done though, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to catch my breath. I'm trying to calm down. Not going to have that for very long though. This is a road course that's deceptive. It's simple in some ways, but mastering it takes skill. Mastering it also takes adjusting to the setup balances. And so far, Phil Krause seems like a rocket ship in a straight line, but good enough through the corners as well. On board with Kevin Burrell. You can see Brandon Roseborough in front just trying to extend his advantage. Hold Christian Hillgaard at length. 2 to go this time by, and traffic not anywhere to be seen. It is all now down to the skill, to the capability of the drivers, and wheel-to-wheel racing potentially. Phil Krause will lead by over 0.8 of a second at the line. He breaks the toe, weaving one way then the other. This is how you know we're at Indy. He's got 1 push to pass left, but it does not matter that Jaden Munoz has 3. He's clearly got the speed and got the confidence. Satellite Racing's Hillgaard backs out eventually, but thought about it hard into the opening corner. 2 more weeks of oval racing before we're back on the left and right turns, and that will be street course racing. Not on the streets of Detroit like they will be racing in the real world. Instead, we will turn the clock back and go racing on Belle Isle. Phil Krause went deep. He's just got not to make a mistake, and he can't do it apparently. 1 more lap to go, and here we go with the intrigue. I'm pretty sure Krause got off into the grass. And now this is where those push-to-passes come in handy. Jaden Munoz can use 1 here. Krause can't to respond. He's got to save it for a little bit later on. Kevin Burrell has lost out in the fight for 4th position. But here we go. 1 more lap to go at the racing capital of the world. And Phil Krause has decided to use the push-to-pass now. Interesting call. He'll hold on into the opening corner. Behind, no move from Burrell on his former teammate Christian Hillgaard. I'm sure there's a story between those two drivers. Kevin Burrell only announced his decision to leave the team a couple of days ago. Front of the field, Jaden Munoz on the button and attempting to try and close. Phil Krause, once again, a little bit deep, but this time a little bit more controlled. What a battle. We thought 29 laps might have been a bit short of a race. It's produced an all-time thriller, an all-time classic, and one of the best on Monday nights. Perhaps it's only then fitting that one of the best to do it in the iRacing IndyCar community will come out on top. The pressure was put on by Jaden Munoz. He's made a statement, but it's Phil Krause kicking off the month of May on top here in Speedway, Indiana, winning across of the Yard of Bricks. Munoz in second, Roseborough third, just in front of Hilgard and Burrell. What more could you ask for in terms of road course racing? The rest of the drivers will scramble across the line. While they do so, let's turn back in time and see this move. What happened between the former teammates? Christian Hilgard with a great move. That was a blinder of a move. Not the first time he'd done that. Jink up the inside through the final corner. Things you love to see, though. There, though, is your winner, and a worthy one at that. There's some big stuff coming for these drivers in the month of May. Remember, qualifying begins in just 3 weeks' time. They're all chasing Christian Steele, the reigning, defending iRacing Indy 500 champion. But Phil Krause will be one to watch. Remember, 2022, he got tangled up with Brandon Traino in the early stages and Michele Costantini in what was one of the defining points of the race. Bit of a cool-down lap for the drivers that I'm sure was needed. A chance for us to catch our breaths as well. There come the drivers after the 29 laps are complete. And here come a look at the race results with private label Team Hype's Phil Krause leading by just 8/10 at the line. A couple of mistakes here and there. That's how you knew that Jaden Munoz was here to play. And that number one machine very much showed that he is one of the fastest in a prototype. Can do it here in a IndyCar as well. Brandon Roseborough in that Hydro Race Geodesic Racing machine is scored in third after, of course, Bo Rigor and John Baderfer got tangled up through turn one. Christian Hilgard recovers after going deep through the opening corner, slides his way back up into fourth, and just in front of former teammate Kevin Burrell. Mitch Welker, sixth for him, only 10 seconds or so off of the lead. And we didn't really get to track Brandon Traino's charge much in the second half of the race, but he ends up climbing 14 positions. No qualifying time for him, but 7th at the end of the day. Robert Malechka scored down in 8th, qualified quite decently, but just didn't seem to have the car to go long run, while Sam Karasala and Alexander Russell round out your top 10. Alex Russell, of course, another one of those drivers to climb his way up through the field. Nick Sudik 11th, Jacob Oster 12th after his spin down on the back straightaway in the opening corner. Connor Harrington had a couple of spills. He's down in 13th with Alan Berteau 14th, and I did say he was mentioning all he wanted to do was have a finish. He finished and finished quite decently. Seb Alexander, Matt Taylor, Brad Newman, the drivers scored on the lead lap, and those then in trouble, Richard Holt, John Baderfer, and then Hayato Matsuda. All in front, though, of Luke Rosella, Blaze Andrick, and Bo Rigor. A couple of drivers really finding out just how difficult cold tires, cold alternate tires in particular, would truly be. Ready to have a bit of a chat, though, with the drivers. Let's see if we can catch up with your race winner. Phil, didn't make your life easy today by any means, but I'm sure that was a race victory that you'd savor, especially with the fight back in the closing stages.
Yeah, RG and I tried to throw it off the track at least 5 times, maybe more, but they would have, honestly, it would have been a no contest if Jaden had a better setup. Like, I know how quick he is in the GTP side of things, and honestly, I was just lucky I had a better car from open wheels last time we ran it, because I pretty much just ran that straight up. Still had some things to fix on it. Tried some stuff before the race, and as you can tell, didn't really work too well. It was not fun on the brakes.
It's funny you mention that, because I did actually wonder at one point audibly on the broadcast, Was there any change to the setup? So I'm glad you've at least answered that question. Phil, of course, we've got a couple of rounds left to go in this championship. At this point, Adam, Block are going to miss, probably a handful of rounds. Championship's basically yours and locked up. So I'm guessing full focus on the month of May and Indy, just not the road course. Full focus instead on the oval.
Yeah, definitely full focus on the oval going forwards. I mean, honestly, this last week was already full focus on the oval because we kind of had a precursor to the 500 with the Elite 500 this Sunday, and we had to put a lot of work into that car to get it anywhere near competitive before that race because we were really struggling on the race side of things. But I definitely think we have a platform to build off of now for that. So hopefully when the race comes around, we'll be looking better than we have in past years.
Let's talk as well then, I guess, about qualifying and the grind, because are you looking forward to qualifying week, Phil? I've got to ask that question as well.
As a team talent driver, I'm obliged to say that I have to look forward to qualifying week. That's kind of our thing. But yeah, kind of looking forward to it. Not looking forward to the agony of like trying to find thousands day on day for a week. But like, it's always fun to do that, and it's always fun to get the absolute maximum out of the package that you can bring to the track.
And of course, the fun will be had during the race week. As a team talent driver, you're not allowed to, qualifying week, you're not allowed to have fun on race day itself. I do have to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot here. We're going to do our qualifying show like we did in 2022. Are we going to get a glory run from you Friday night to try and see if you can put it all on the line on RaceSpotTV and show that you're the best qualifier in Indy? Come on.
Does that mean I have to turn my, have to hop in the Zoom and all that fun stuff?
I won't make you do that if you don't want to, but you have to be there and try and qualify at least.
Oh yeah, I'll show up.
Okay, I'm holding you to that.
Give the people what they want.
There we go. We're going to try and have a few people do that, and a one-shot pressure qualifying session. We'll see how it goes. Phil, congratulations on the win. Didn't make it easy for yourself, but what a fight it was. Can't wait for the rest of the month that lies ahead.
Cheers, Arjuna.
Always great to chat with Phil Krause. He built another house here, this time, of course, next to the side of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Let's see if we can catch up quickly with Brandon Roseborough down in third. Interesting race. Closing stages felt some pressure, but Brandon, how did the balance of the car feel? The best of the Hydra Race geodesic racing drivers at the end of the day.
Yeah, the car felt great. I was really just trying to keep the tires under me when I was on the alternates, and then once the pack closed up after Phil, I guess, had it off, I was really just trying to keep pace with him and then potentially try an undercut, and I guess it worked out. P3 is not bad for me.
I was going to ask about strategy because it's such a big window, right? 29-lap race with a 25-lap fuel window. Really does open up the possibilities. What were you thinking coming into the race? Did you kind of play your hand by putting a certain amount of fuel into the car, trying to be a little bit lighter on weight, or was it basically, we'll just see how the race goes and adapt on the fly?
Nah, you definitely nailed it. Once we saw that the fuel window was massive, I mean, we took advantage of it. So, yeah, that's probably where most of my pace came from, actually.
Got a couple of weeks off the road courses before we're back on the streets of Belle Isle. Are you going to join us on the ovals next couple of weeks? Motegi's up next, and then, of course, the big one at Indy. Not sure if we've seen you on Monday nights, unfortunately, on an oval just yet.
Well, I did Auto Club, but I was second split. But I'll definitely be doing more ovals in the future.
Okay, we'll get your iRating up there eventually so it can match your, almost 7,000 on the road course. Congratulations, Brandon, on third. Can't wait to see you maybe next week, but definitely a couple of weeks' time at Belle Isle.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Brandon Roseborough joins us now. Was hoping that we'd get the chance to catch up with Jaden Munoz as well after making his official Monday night debut in the IndyCars, but doesn't seem as though we're going to get that chance to have a chat with him. And so, yeah, we look forward to what is an interesting race. I'm a fan of Motegi. I don't know if I've always commentated on great races from Motegi. That's going to be, of course, on May the 13th. Same time, same place. Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. It's an oval with two distinct ends to the track, of course, and that makes it quite a unique setup challenge. Got to adjust your tools. Turns 1 and 2, very flat and wide open in many ways. And then turn 3 and 4, do you want to be on the brakes? Do you want to try and just bleed off the speed? Be careful with dirty air as well. Can be very, very precarious. All still, though, left to come on the journey that we have ahead of us. This is that schedule for the drivers. Of course, we'll make our way to Indianapolis the week of the real Indianapolis 500. So that's going to be an interesting week. The week after that is when iRacing's Indy 500 gets underway. So that's going to be when the focus will be on qualifying. I'm hoping we still have a couple of drivers show up for Belle Isle, but unfortunately there is no guarantee of that. With that, it's time for us to say goodbye. What a fun race it was, and what a way to kick off one of the best months of the year. Racing from this racing capital of the world, and here in the month of May, albeit virtually, what a great race between Jaden Munoz and Phil Kraus at the front. Phil Kraus made it difficult for himself, and he really had to fight his way back to the front. We'll be racing plenty more here from Speedway Indiana over the rest of the month. You can catch that all here live on RaceSpotTV. For the team behind the scenes, thanks for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the month of May.